when it comes to top prospects who started off their career okay and then looked like gigantic busts. Look no farther than Valeri Nichushkin. A large-framed, 6'4" power goal-scoring winger who has drawn comparisons to Rick Nash during the 2013 NHL draft, and because of his tantalizing package.
Rushka, Valeri Nichushkin.
Nichushkin would be drafted 10th overall by the Dallas Stars, and because of his physical maturity, Nichushkin would make the opening night roster and have a solid rookie season.
Get a shot, he scores! There it is! Val Nichushkin's first NHL goal!
Putting up 14 goals, 34 points, showing glimpses of a future 30-goal scorer. However, Nichushkin was dealing with nagging hip problems, and so he would have to make the very hard decision to have season-ending hip surgery. The next season, now in an even further reduced role, we would see regression in his game. And frustrated with his opportunities with the Stars, combined with hostile contract negotiations, Valeri would decide to leave the NHL altogether, as he would sign a 2-year, $5.9 million contract in the KHL. And at last, another highly touted prospect who busted in the NHL, only to leave the NHL altogether and go back home. Psych! You thought, as shockingly, my god, Nichushkin would return, because after 2 respectable KHL seasons, maybe his game returned too. And well, do I have a stat for you. Not only did Nichushkin get healthy scratched 28 times throughout the regular season and playoffs, but Valeri Nichushkin would also set an NHL record for playing 66 NHL games without recording a goal or penalty minute throughout that stretch, which included the entire 2018-2019 season. And although he had next to no impact on games in the box score, analytically, there was a bright spot. Defense, baby! Because even though he wasn't scoring, he was, however, keeping the puck out of his own net. And so after he was bought out by Dallas so that the Stars could sign Carey and Pavelski, my man would sign an $850K deal with the Avalanche, where he would explode into arguably the top defensive winger in the league, on top of bouncing back offensively.
Here comes Nichushkin all alone to make it 2-0. Yes!
As he would have a career-high 25 goals, 52 points in 62 games just this past season, on top of being just behind Cale Makar, and playoff MVP voting, as Nichushkin had a very bizarre career where he looked like a gigantic bust. Went back to the KHL, however came back, somehow looked like an even bigger bust, on top of claiming the Stanley Cup. The NHL has been changing. Stricter rules, stricter diets, more training, and less beer. A lot less beer. Because back in the day, besides the fact that they were being paid a lot of money for being a professional athlete, it was more similar to a beer league than it is to today's NHL. This brings us to the story of Link Gaetz, one of the toughest players the game has ever seen. Because growing up, Link as young as 16 was said to be so tough that he would have been a top 10 heavyweight in the NHL and in his first season in the WHL. Link had a measly, 52 penalty minutes in 44 games. And as for the next season, this man would rack up 313 penalty minutes in 59 games. My god. And being that he was the toughest competitor in the draft, on top of the fact that he was a large, shutdown defenseman who put up a respectable 29 points in his draft year, meant that many scouts projected him as a top pick in the draft. Except, and this is no joke, Link would show up to the draft with 2 black eyes and a case of beer in his hands. Like, look at his draft day photo. Wild. And this behavior, combined with the fact that Link already was rumored to be an unhinged boozer who loved to fight at bars, which is why he had a double black eye on draft day, scared many scouts away, and he would slip to the second round. And by no surprise, this behavior would continue at the NHL level, as Link would receive a team suspension in his first season for throwing his hotel TV out the window. Thus, his time with the North Stars would not last. as he'd be shipped to the San Jose Sharks following his third professional season. And in 48 games, so just over half the season, Link would, and I'm not even joking, put up 326 penalty minutes. Also meaning, in a full 82 game season, Link Gaetz was on pace for 557 penalty minutes, which not only would have broken the record for the most penalties in a single season, it also would have been nearly 100 penalty minutes more than second place, as Dave Schultz currently holds the record with 472. Link Gaetz was the Wayne Gretzky of taking penalties. However, in April of 1992, Gaetz would be involved in a car accident, which caused brain issues that meant his career was over. And after 65 games, 412 penalty minutes, it was still enough to know that Gaetz was one of the toughest players to ever play the game. And speaking of highly touted players who had a very short but sweet career, look no further than Jim Carey. No, not that Jim, this Jim. Because after being the top ranked goalie heading into the 1992 draft, Jim Carey would be selected in the second round by the Washington Capitals, where he would go on to play for the Capitals minor league team, and he would win Rookie of the Year and Goaltender of the Year in his first professional season. Not to mention he'd be called up to the Capitals that same season, where he would be an absolute stud, posting an 18-6-3 record, a 2.13 goals against average, and a 913 save percentage. And this call-up was enough for Carey to also finish second in Calder voting and third in Vezina voting. Not bad. Not too bad. Also, fun fact here, including the playoffs, Jim Carey played 95 games this season. 95! Like, what? How is that even allowed? Carey Price playing 75 games has nothing on Jim Carey. Like, goddamn. And so at this point, the sky was the limit for Jim Carey. And well, my man would take over the net in his first official NHL season.
Jim Carey.
And win the Vezina for being the NHL's top goaltender, on top of being selected to the NHL's first All-Star team. However, after a slow start the next season, the Washington Capitals would make a blockbuster trade to the Boston Bruins, sending Jim Carey, who just won the Vezina, Jason Allison, who would eventually become a 30-goal, 90-point player in his prime, Anson Carter, who would become a 30-goal scorer, 2 draft picks for Hall of Famer Adam Oates, Rick Tocchet, yes, this Rick Tocchet, and Bill Ranford. This is where the tragedy would strike, as Jim Carey would join a last-place team in Boston and have an even poorer performance. The next season, injuries were really catching up with Carey, where he would also butt heads with coach Pat Burns, get sent down to the AHL. So going from Vezina to being sent down to the minors. In 1998, he started the season in the minors, never to be called up again. He would sign a contract with the St. Louis Blues at the end of that season, play a shaky 4 games, and decide to retire from hockey altogether. So just for a quick recap here, Jim Carey went from being the future goaltender of the NHL, winning AHL Rookie of the Year in the same season he would win AHL Goalie of the Year, on top of being called up for a 28-game stint, which was enough to finish second in Calder voting, and third in Vezina voting, exploding the next season claiming the elusive Vezina trophy, a trophy first ballot Hall of Famer Bobby Lou never even won, and 3 years later, he would retire from hockey, never playing another game of professional hockey. And no, he didn't go to Europe or, the KHL. This man just straight up bailed